Hey guys, I'm Songbird Ultralight, and today I'm going to talk to you about the Borah Gear Side Zip Bivy. It's the bivy sack that I finished the Appalachian Trail with this last summer, and it is absolutely a winner as far as ultralight equipment goes.
So awesome.
So I'm trying to scrunch this down so you can see just how small it is. I think really it's softball sized, realistically. So if you've followed my Instagram, you'll know that the old bivy that I used was the REI Minimalist bivy. I modded it. I cut a bunch of the zipper pulls off so that it'd be lighter. I didn't really like the fact that there were like 12 zippers on it, so I just left one pair and it's perfect. I used it in winter, really cold conditions. I'm talking snow on the ground, you know, wet, soggy ground, just wet, cold rain, like absolutely 100% necessary to avoid getting anything wet. Especially at night when it's cold, if it's raining. So if you're trying to figure out if you need a waterproof bivy versus a water-resistant bivy or just a bug mesh bivy, you should probably watch that video. It's all about bivvies. Just as a quick guide, if it's gonna be really cold, snow on the ground, like cold, wet rain, and it's going to be raining a hell of a lot, that it's really important to keep your sleep system dry, and you should probably get a waterproof bivy. The warmer the conditions are that you're experiencing, while you might get wet under your tiny little tarp, the less important the waterproof quality of the top of the fabric is. So I personally was comfortable going with a water-resistant top because I know it's going to be summer. I know that the low temperature that I'm going to face is really in the 50s. So a few nights there, it was actually very cold. It got down into the upper 40s, lower 50s. So on colder nights, this bivy actually did keep me a lot warmer than I would have been with just my sleep system. So usually when the mosquitoes were out was when it was a pretty nice night and it kind of cools off, the sun goes down and the mosquitoes come out in force, right? Honestly, when the mosquitoes were like really, really bad, I would just get in this during a break or waiting for my friends or something at a road crossing. I would just take this out of my back pocket and get in it and just zip it up. And just tent it over my head and have the fabric out like this, have my hat on, and just use it as a big bug cocoon, because sometimes the mosquitoes were just so bad that just it weighed on your mind. Like, it just beats you down mentally when you're getting eaten alive. And the ability to just jump in here and zip it up was awesome, just on a break, and sitting down on like a log and just be completely protected was nice. On those nights, the nice nights where it's just kind of ruined by mosquitoes, I would just throw the bivy out, put my sleeping pad, put my sleeping bag, everything inside. My gear could be somewhere off to the side, stuffed in the backpack, or I could tuck my gear down in the foot of my bag or something like that. I could have everything self-contained inside this, like it's my tent. I could put all my extra gear in here. That's why I got the wide. I had a lot of real estate in here. It was not claustrophobic at all. But getting the wide girth bivy from Borah, the side zip that's a wide version, I'm obviously super weight conscious, but like just having that extra space, the payoff for the tiny weight increase was just like absolutely insane. I could sleep on my side, I could roll around, I could like kind of stretch out, I could lay and like kind of stretch out like this, sleeping on my stomach. And I mean, I never felt trapped in here. The design of the Borah that I selected with the wider girth meant that when I tented this out, I had a lot of space in here. My sleeping pad held the bottom fabric down so that when I tented this out, the edges didn't pull in like this, and it made like a pretty nice big chest area here where I didn't have anything touching me. So when it was really hot, I could push my quilt off to the side, I could just lay on my pad, and there wouldn't be anything on my waist up to my upper body. I was just out in the open like I was in a tent that was zipped up, the bugs couldn't get to me, and no heat was trapped against my chest. So I'd say whatever bivy you get, make sure that if you're going to be using it in warmer weather, you have a pretty significantly sized bug mesh like window, like or a bug mesh hood, and make sure that somewhere on that bug mesh there's a loop where you can tent the fabric up away from you. It is an absolute life changer as far as bivvies go. The rest of the bivvy just kind of goes down. You see at the foot end of the bivvy sack, there isn't really a loop to like lift up the fabric. This is a little bit tapered. It's not like a bunch of extra fabric. The head end, the torso, that was the important part. That was what I really liked and what I really needed. And that was what I really looked for when I purchased this with the bug mesh, so I could get it up away from my body. That is super important. So if you're looking for a bivvy for nighttime temperatures of like 45 degrees to like 75 degrees on like the hot end, like to where you wouldn't even really want this particular bivvy, at that point, like 70s and up, you kind of want to start switching to a bug mesh bivy where the whole top is bug mesh, but that's kind of a different subject. But in general, if you're looking for a good bivy, the things you're going to need are an actually waterproof bottom fabric, like 100% waterproof bottom fabric. You're looking for polys, sills, kind of fabric that's impregnated with plastics. Cuban would work as well. I have some concerns about using Cuban as a ground sheet, moving around and stuff, especially on a longer hike. If you're going to do overnights and stuff and your goal is just to be as low as possible, then Cuban would be fine. But the durability is a concern for me. As I noted in my Cuban backpack video, there are some wear resistance issues. I can show you that stuff if you watch that video. With ultralight equipment, you're going to want to be a little bit more careful than you are with heavier denier, kind of like who cares about the weight kind of equipment. But with the similar weight sil nylon, I think you're going to get a lot more durability out of it. And the waterproof performance is going to be excellent. So especially when you look at the cost and with something as important as this, you know, actually using it, not worrying about breaking it. If you do some damage to it, you can fix it or you can have it replaced. One thing I like about the sil nylon instead of the Cuban bivy bottom is just that the overall price is so much lower. You're looking at like 90 bucks for this bivy. And if after a season or two of use, it starts to get holes and it's hard to patch, and there's just so many patches on it that it's starting to get heavier, I can replace it and I'm not crying about it, you know? Versus with the Cuban, I'm paying so much more initially that I almost don't want to use it because it's just that expensive. But yeah, any of those waterproof tent floor type fabrics that are used normally will be fine for the bottom of the bivy. Second, you're going to want that breathable top fabric. This is probably the most important thing. Depending on how much protection your shelter gives you, even in the winter, I would say you want something more breathable on top. This argon top fabric has done super well for me. It has provided spray and splash protection, bad weather protection, where rain has been driven under my tarp, where in campsites, like if you watch the video where I was camping in New Jersey, the rain was coming down so hard that it was hitting the like flattened campsite ground. The water droplets were coming down and hitting the water that was already on the ground and just splashing and spraying all this dirt all over all of my gear. And this protected my equipment. It kept it clean, it kept it dry. When this dried off, I just shook it off and all that dirt came off. I didn't have to worry about getting a bunch of crap on my sleep system. It worked really well. And the breathability, like I said, was just fantastic. Coming from a waterproof bivy and going to this, it was absolutely night and day. It was so much better that even in the winter, I'm going to want to try to use this instead of my winter bivy. Now this mesh hood fabric, I wanted to look over it and see if there were any holes or anything. Having such a big bug mesh hood on here, I was worried about this giant piece of bug mesh getting holes in it somewhere, but I didn't have any problems. It's pretty tough stuff. I don't have any holes in it or anything. I've zipped it up in the zippers by mistake in the dark. I've had to like kind of pull it out of the zipper pull, and I mean there haven't been any places where it's really been beat up at all. The only place where there's been some stress on the bug mesh fabric is where this hanging loop attaches. It's so small that I'm not going to be able to show you on camera, but kind of like the cheesecloth separating, there's some places where the stitching attaches where it's starting to stretch a little bit with the fabric. Mosquitoes and gnats aren't going to get through there anyway, but it looks like maybe after another season or so of use, I might have to reinforce that with some more stitching, or I might have to tape it or something. I was worried that rolling around and stuff like I do at night, I would just like rip this off, but it did really well. So as far as whether or not I liked using the bivy for months at a time as my shelter, really it was a component of my shelter. I would kind of think of a bivy like this as the mesh insert for your tent. Like with a normal backpacking ultralight tent, you know, you have your mesh tent that you set up first, and then if it's going to rain, you put the fly over it. This is like the mesh insert. You set this up first, and if it's going to rain, you put your tarp over it. I pretty much set my tarp up every night. Even if it wasn't going to rain, I knew that it would kind of protect me from wind. I knew that it would kind of give me a little enclosed area that kind of made me feel safe and private. If other hikers were walking by on a nearby trail, I would kind of set it up so that I had that privacy from the trail and people couldn't see me. And when I was in an open area and there was nothing above me and there would be rapid cooling at night causing that condensation on all of my gear, the tarp took the hit and kept everything underneath it dry, which was really nice. So really there's not really a reason to not use your tarp. Unlike a rainfly on a tent where you don't put the rainfly on a nice night because it's going to be too warm or you're not going to get that nice ventilation. You really have no ventilation problems with the lean-to tarp setup. Like the breeze is going to come through really nicely. You're not going to have any condensation. On a really hot night where you still want that protection from possible rain or you want like a little privacy or something, you can just pitch that tarp a little higher. So I'm talking about the tarp a little bit here, I noticed, but that's because the tarp and the bivy go together. You really can't use one without the other. And all my setup videos where I show how I set up camp, the tarp's always in there. The poncho tarp for me started as this kind of backup, worst case scenario shelter where if I couldn't get into a shelter at night, like one of the pre-made shelters, or if there were a lot of people at one place, or if it caught me unexpectedly out in the rain with bad weather, I could set something up and just get under it and deal with it. But as I've spent like wintry conditions, as I've been out on the AT longer, I've found that I really like it. It's a really bomb-proof, flexible piece of gear that's really amazing for the weight. And you come in here and get a closer look. Nice bed of needles, bivy, 2-inch plus whatever inflatable sleeping pad, and there's bugs all over it. So I'm going to be using that bug net tonight and keeping it all cinched up. But should be nice sitting height for hanging out in there if I don't want to sit in the stone chair. But I don't know why I wouldn't sit in the stone chair. It's part of a system. So you have a small tarp, you have a poncho. Now with a bigger tarp, do you need a bivy for extra splash protection? If you have good site selection, no, you don't need a bivy. But I'm kind of leaning towards telling people that you do need a bivy if you're not in an enclosed hammock, like with a bug net, you're not up off the ground, or if you're not in a tent where you can zip up the mesh. I'm really of the opinion that you need to have some full enclosure with bug mesh or something at night. If you're on the ground, I think you really do need something that fully encloses you. And now in the quest to go as light and as simple as humanly possible, some people will go with just a ground sheet and they'll have their pad and their sleeping equipment, and then they'll have their tarp, and that's it. And depending on where you are, that might be fine, but for me, I started thinking snakes, mice, spiders, other bugs, and ticks. Number one is ticks. When you're sleeping at night and you're on the ground, you got leaf litter, you got grass, like bugs and critters are going to get into your sleep system. People wake up with spider bites in shelters. It's a real thing, and I like to be able to sleep and have this full enclosure of the bivy, especially when it's tented out, and know that nothing can get to me. It lets me sleep more easily. It lets me feel really like protected from anything that might get in and sting me or bite me. I sleep a lot better knowing that I'm in the bivy sack. You're not gonna wake up with ants all in your business. It's really nice to have that bug protection and that critter protection. I was just talking to my friend the other day. He's got Lyme's disease. And I think a lot of hikers get it and they don't really know why they feel tired. They don't really know why they have these symptoms, and they let it go for so long, and it's so dangerous. Number one, when you're done playing in the woods, you're done going out and hiking for however long, or if you go out frequently and you go and hike on the weekends and stuff, get tested somewhat frequently. It can really mess up your health, man. It's not worth the risk of it going undiagnosed. Lyme's disease is almost like you can rationalize a lot of the symptoms away, like I'm just feeling under the weather for now, and it comes and goes. Definitely when you're done with a long hike like the AT, the PCT, whatever, go get tested for tick-borne diseases. Especially if you're on the East Coast, get tested for Lyme. So many people that I know have had it, have contracted it, or have long-term effects from it. And I'm worried that my buddy, having gone for over a year now, will have some long-term problems. I've had some scares with Lyme. I've gotten tested and it's been positive. And then I've gone to the infectious disease specialist and then gotten further tests, and then they're like, well, you don't have it because you don't have the antibody. It's scary stuff. So go get tested and make sure you don't have it. So because it is such a big deal and it's such a dangerous thing and it can affect your life so strongly, I really feel that it's important to have that fully enclosed sleep system, because you don't need more exposure while you're sleeping to Lyme and biting spiders and all kinds of things. Just a bivy or a bug net on your hammock or your tent that seals up. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure, or whatever it is. So when you're selecting a bivy, there's bivvies from REI, MSR. I mean, there's all kinds of companies that make bivvies. You can make your own bivy sack. I think this is probably one of the easiest things that you can make yourself. The zipper might be kind of difficult, but you can watch tutorials online. If you want to DIY a bivy sack, you absolutely can. Just remember the waterproof bottom, the water resistant, like breathable top, maybe with the DWR coating. You want it more water resistant, where you're going to be using a smaller shelter and you're going to be in colder conditions. And then honestly, as much mesh as you can get without seriously compromising the water resistant protection of the bivy. And last, sizing. And I'm getting into the sizing right after I talk about the mesh for a very specific reason you'll see in a second. Get something that's a little bit longer than you need, and definitely get something that's much wider than you need. If you get a bivy that just barely fits your shoulder width, when you spin around and stuff, it's gonna feel claustrophobic. Like I'm not like a really claustrophobic person, but like your knees will get stuck. You won't be able to flip around. You're gonna spend a lot of time at night and in the mornings when it's cold, when it's wet, when you're trying to shelter from weather. You're gonna be in your bivy, and you're gonna want to be able to read. You're gonna want to be able to mess with your phone. You're gonna want to be able to look at your guidebook. Get something that's wider. Please listen. Don't save the like 1/4 of a gram with the smaller size. Get something that's wider. You need the space. Don't get something that's super XL, super duper wide, because then it'll like stick out from under your tarp and stuff. But like, get like a wide girth. I'm 5'10", and this bivy fits 6'1" height people. So I have a little bit of extra length at the foot end, which I like. Also, noting this lifter for the head end, which is so important for increasing the comfort inside of the bivy on hot, buggy nights. The ability to temp that out and get it away from your body is awesome. If you have a smaller, like regular size bivy, you don't go for that extra length and that extra width, you're not going to be able to tent it out as much. You're not going to have that open space inside, and that's where you do get kind of cramped. You get kind of trapped inside the bivy. Go for a bigger bivy and you'll be much more comfortable. There's two main things that people say about bivy sacks. One is don't get one. They're small and they're claustrophobic and you're going to feel trapped in it. With a wide girth and a little extra length and the ability to tent it out like this, you are not going to feel claustrophobic unless you have a phobia, like an actual phobia of being in confined spaces. As far as the condensation issues everyone talks about going, tenting it out is also going to help with that. Increasing the ventilation means that you're probably going to have a lot better experience as far as condensation goes. And then having a water resistant top instead of the waterproof top, that again means that you're going to have much more breathability. That moisture is going to be more likely to escape out of your sleep system, and you're not going to have those condensation problems that you will with a waterproof bivy. Now granted, I learned this when I was in my hammock with the bug mat around it. It does trap some heat and it does block some wind. So if you're going for more ventilation, the bug mesh will still trap some heat. You're gonna notice the little bit of warmth retained, but if it's choice between like feeling that little bit of extra warmth with the mesh, retaining it when it's super hot, or getting eaten alive by mosquitoes and being pretty hot anyway, it's not even a question. You're gonna want the bug mesh. So now back to why I talked about sizing right after I talked about the mesh is this. You can pull that extra fabric up to your chin. You can kind of make that mesh window smaller by covering it up with the extra fabric. With a wider girth bivy, you can fold that fabric up a little bit. You can tug on the bivy so that you have a little bit more weather protection on one side. Having that extra real estate, having that extra material is really nice. When it was really cold, really windy, or if I just wanted to protect from a little bit more splash than I had anticipated, maybe I didn't set my tarp up perfectly, I could just pull this up and I would have significantly less splatter getting onto my torso through this mesh. Now I should note that the mesh does a pretty good job of stopping splatter. It's a very fine mesh. It's gonna catch and collect and go down, but if you wanna have that water resistant protection, you can definitely, with a bigger bivy, move the fabric around and make the best use of it. So if you're picking out a bivy, as long as it has a waterproof bottom, water resistant top, and plenty of mesh, you're gonna be comfortable in it. And it doesn't need to cost over $100. It really doesn't. You can buy the $90 Borah Gear Bivy that I have, and it's gonna do great for you. I didn't get the Cuban bottom, one, because of cost, and two, because I was worried that it wouldn't hold up to the abrasion of being used as a ground sheet. I don't want to use a ground sheet with a bivy sack that has a waterproof ground sheet built into it. That just doesn't make sense to me. It's redundant, it's extra weight. I cut it out. If I know that I'm going to be exposing it to a lot of bare rock, I'm gonna be on bare rock, even with this tougher steel nylon, I'm gonna bring a piece of Tyvek. I'm gonna set that down and I'm gonna let the Tyvek take the beating instead of my gear. That's a completely different story. Normally when you're camping, you have dirt. Normally you don't set up camp on exposed rock unless you're trying to cowboy camp in a cool spot, like on a cliff or something like that. All right guys, my experience this summer, 2.5 months from the upper 40s, like near 50 degrees, up through like the mid 70s. I got a little hot in the mid 70s with this. I would just tent it out and I wouldn't use my sleeping system. I would just sleep in the bivy on top of my sleeping pad. I would just push my quilt off to the side when it was super hot and I would just have the bivy sack on me and it was awesome. The bug protection was great. The splash protection was awesome under my tiny little poncho tarp. It worked really well in shelters. I had a little enclosed tent inside the shelters, so I didn't get bit by anything, spiders or anything like that. I didn't have mice getting into my sleep system at night. I really like the bivy sack. If you really want to try a poncho tarp or a bivy, know that for me at least, they are absolutely a pair. It's like the mesh interior of a tent. You, on a nice night, will set up just the mesh and you won't put the rain fly on. A lot of times I'll put the tarp up anyway because it just provides protection from condensation like dew in the morning. So tarp is good to have over you. I think it's really important to have a fully enclosed sleep system with bug mesh zipped up so that those bugs, those spiders, those mice, those ticks specifically do not get into your system and give you illnesses, give you sore spots, give you bites. These things are pretty darn simple. There's not a lot to them. Waterproof floor, water resistant, as breathable as you can, top as much and as big a mesh thing as you can without sacrificing water protection. If you want to strip down the top, that's fine. More mesh, more breathability, more water-resistant fabric is going to be better. But yeah, my bivy did super well for me. I'm really happy. I would use it again. I absolutely would. I hope you guys are enjoying these videos. I hope that they're helping you out, or maybe you're just getting your fix on gear talk. I definitely enjoy making them and talking about gear with you guys. So some channel news, we are approaching 100 subscribers. I think at the time of this video we're at 91. So I've got some time to figure out what we're gonna do. I don't know if we wanna do a hike and just go on a little adventure and say that it's for the 100 subscribers as an excuse, or if we wanna do a raffle. Maybe there's a piece of equipment that I have that I could raffle away. Maybe I've got a pocket knife or something around that I can raffle. I don't know exactly how we'd get the raffle done. I'd prefer to use a software program and have all the subscribers' names and just have it randomly picked. But honestly, I will fill this hat with 100 paper slips with y'all's names on it and draw it and do a video of it. If I have to, I'd prefer the software thing because that would be a little less work, I think. But it's exciting. I think 100 subscribers is kind of a big deal for a little channel. So if you're new to the channel, thanks for coming and checking it out. Maybe hit that subscribe button if you liked it. And if you like these videos, keep clicking that like button. Maybe leave a comment. If you like the idea of the raffle, we'll do it. And don't forget to tell me, guys, what you want to see next. I have that video out showing everything I came back with at the end of the trail. Next up will probably be the poncho tarp and talking about how it performed as rain gear and how it performed as a shelter and whether it did both jobs well. I write long, detailed replies to your questions. Don't be afraid to post a comment on whatever video, any comment section that you can find on my channel. I'll get a notification and I will reply to you. It might take me a day or two if I'm busy. And just know that when you ask your questions in the comment section where other people can see it, they're exposed to a question that maybe they hadn't thought of themselves. Most questions are good questions in that way, and it gives me an opportunity to tell you guys something where you can all see the answer. And maybe it's something that I wouldn't have thought to talk about with you guys unless that question had been asked. So I really appreciate y'all's continued support of the channel. It's been a heck of a lot of fun making these videos for you guys. I like doing all the work. I like doing all the editing and stuff. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video on the Borah Gear Bivy, and we'll see you in the next video where I'll probably be talking about the poncho tarp.